Hello everyone, my name is Brett Bushnell. I am president of the Rockwall Young Republicans. And I thank you all for braving the rain and the super cold weather this evening. We have a great forum featuring 7 candidates. I'm excited that everybody's here. Again, thank you for braving the weather. And thank you to all of the candidates for putting themselves forward in this environment. And thank you to all the campaign staff and volunteers for this event that make it possible. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our County Chair, Sharon Hinson, for a few statements.
Thank you, Brett. Yes, thank you all so much for coming out tonight. I know there was a lot of pressure on us to cancel it. I'm so very glad we didn't. We're being live streamed on Blue Ribbon News, and so whether you're here, big shout out. Thank you, Richard. So for those who aren't here, they're still going to be able to see this, and then we'll have it posted, recorded, and posted on our YouTube later. So at this time, I'm going to ask Judge Mark Russo to come forward and lead us in prayer.
Your Daughter has with her, please. Dear Father, as we gather here today to keep us up through this inclement weather, that we all have safe ways home. Father, as we talk and as we open our hearts and our minds today and we listen to those who are given as they take an opportunity to lead our nation, Father, we just ask you that we just listen intently. Father, we do your will, and we have just bless these candidates. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And then our State Republican Executive Committee woman, Jerry Fisher, will lead us in our pledges.
Hey, Jerry.
To the greatest nation ever, I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now to the best state in the union.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. God bless Texas!
All right. Thank you all. Can y'all hear us in the back? All right, good. Because last week we had a little issue with that. So I thought what I would do tonight, just to help along a little bit, some questions that had come up. First of all, we're so thankful that we've got such a great crowd in this weather. There was a lot of pressure to just cancel. And I'm like, folks, we're Texans. I mean, we can drive in rain. Oh, well, most of us can. And but it's not going to be frozen by the time we're finished, so I think we're safe, and we decided to go ahead and do it. We did abbreviate the program for tonight in respect to those who want to get out and who are concerned about being here tonight. So we canceled SD2 and the State Board of Education for tonight, and they will be here next week. So you will still get to hear from those candidates, and we're grateful that they're going to be able to adjust their schedule. We didn't want to cancel this one because we have 7 out of 9 candidates for Congress. We knew it would be a challenge to get them all together at one time again. So we stayed true to the schedule in that regard. A little bit about our process, briefly. We have a forum committee who is, we keep the names confidential except for the chairperson because we don't want anybody having any undue influence on any of them. Our chairperson is required by our bylaws and rules to be offered to a precinct chair before we go out. And we had our precinct chair 4A, Andrew Greenberg, who volunteered to be the chairperson. So that's how he was appointed to that position. The other members of the committee, I assure you, are spirited, opinionated Republicans who know what is going on, who will not be pushed or bullied to say, to soften questions or approaches. And I'm very proud of the work that they've done. We've had some of these people have been on the committee for a few years. We've got some new ones. They've done a fabulous job. They've been meeting for several weeks to make sure that they have a fair process and questions that are not just gimme questions. So candidates, get ready. It's going to be fun. We don't want to, there's no gotcha questions, but they're all fair questions. So that's important to know. We don't want to cause any trouble. We just want the voters to hear directly from the candidates in a fair way. And again, I want to say thank you to our committee, to Brett Bushnell, who's going to MC tonight. And I'm going to hand it right back over to him. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you so much. I'm going to go, I know the candidates have been eagerly waiting over here to the side, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our candidates first, and then I will give you guys kind of some rules and the rundown on how this debate is going to go tonight. And candidates, if you guys can see me, when I announce your name, it's going to be my left to the right in that order, okay? First, we have Abteen Baziri. Second is Ryan Binkley. And third is Monty Montanez. And fourth is Daryl Day. Fifth, Jace Yarborough. Sixth, Paul Bondar. And seventh, Gordon Heslop. Alrighty, now that we have everyone here, thank you, gentlemen. You may go ahead and take your seats. I'm going to explain to the audience really quickly about how some notes of the night. The candidates were given. We did give the candidates a heads up on how this is going to go. They're not hearing this from me for the first time. So thank you again, all of you, for being here tonight in this weather. We really appreciate it. All candidates are going to be seated. They can stand up when they answer if they want to. They can choose to use their 60 seconds, which they will get for the original answer on each question. At 30 seconds, they will see a yellow light from Patty down below. And then when their time is out, they will see a red light from Patty below as well. So candidates know this, but every candidate will not answer every question. The questions in candidate order have been randomized to keep the discussion substantive and engaging. For example, for the seating order and the closing statements, they were ran through a random name generator. In this case, it's 3 times without looking at any of the orders until they were done. Questions in candidate order are randomized, and that's just to keep no favoritism. You're going to get what questions you get. Please do not use your first answer to give background or biographical information. We're going to go right into the candidates' no opening statements, but they will get a 90-second closing statement at the end. There will be rebuttals and follow-ups tonight, and our moderators who are coming down now, Casey Campbell and Andrew Greenberg. We'll be asking the questions. Candidates are encouraged to answer directly and concisely, focusing on the substance of the question. Candidates, you will share mics. There will be 3 mics in front of you. I'm currently holding one of them. But I'm going to turn it over now to Andrew Greenberg and Casey Campbell. Let's get the show on the road. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Brett. All right, candidates, we have quite a few questions we'd like to ask you. And to reiterate what Brett said, not every single one of you will answer every single question. However, with the randomization, we have looked through it. We've got quite a few questions that I think that the audience here, the voters, that you are seeking their support and their vote are going to be very interested in hearing. So we'll start right away. The candidates that will answer this are Mr. Montanez, Mr. Yarborough, and Mr. Day. The question is, China continues to dominate supply chains and manufacturing. What concrete steps would you take to bring jobs back to America, and how does your plan go further, or perhaps take a different path than the fellow candidates you're sitting with tonight? We'll start with Mr. Montanez.
Good evening, everyone. China is one of our major competitors, but they're also a trading partner. President Trump is taking the correct steps right now in challenging their global dominance when it comes to rare earth minerals. That is the future of our technology, and that is the future and security of the United States, not only economically, but also militarily. What we need to do is to codify every single policy and executive order that President Trump has done so far. I believe that when I get to Washington That is the first thing that I will do, is to create alliances to ensure that we codify everything that he's done, so that when the next administration takes over, we ensure that we keep up the hard work that he's already done.
I agree that we need to codify all the executive orders that President Trump has written so far. But in answer to the question, I think we need to disengage from China. It's been a trading partner actually to our detriment. And I think that we need to get away from China, especially in pharmaceuticals. You all probably know nearly 90% of pharmaceuticals in the U.S. are manufactured in China. We are at tremendous peril right now with China having such sway over our pharmaceuticals. So we need to, and maybe the deal in Greenland will solve this problem. We need to get serious about mining rare earth, and we need to get serious about manufacturing pharmaceuticals in the U.S., and we don't need China as a trading partner.
Yeah, so America is a nation, not an economic zone. And for too long, we conservatives have pretended the rest of the world abides by the free market principles that we rightly hold dear. What that means is that our behavior becomes predictable. So the Chinese Communist Party is able to dictate the jobs that are available to Americans, the industry that we have here. President Trump is right to institute tariffs. We should absolutely support and back him to the hilt on that and every other issue. Something else, we have to stop funding the rest of the world's basically excess production. So what happens now is China comes in, and through industrial arbitrage and aggressive tactics, they will take businesses from certain countries by promising access to their large market, right? In the United States, Westinghouse is a great example of an American company that once dominated the globe and is no more, right? So we have to shift the incentives for our partners to say, you need to choose between a country, allying with a country that wants your prosperity so that both of us can grow and flourish, or a country that ultimately wants to take from you. And the president's done a great job of that. I'd be a complete supporter of him as your next Congressman from 32. Thanks.
Thank you. Moving on to immigration enforcement. Beyond border security, immigration enforcement remains deeply divisive. What does a no amnesty immigration policy mean to you in practice, and how does your position stand apart from the rest of the field? And for this question, we'll start with Mr. Day, followed by Mr. Bonder and Mr. Binkley.
To me, no amnesty means get them out of this country. President Trump's done a brilliant job shutting down the border, and as he said, we didn't need a new law, we just needed a new president. But now we've got to stand with ICE, and despite the media and despite the radical wacko left trying to get in the way of ICE enforcing our immigration laws, I stand 100% behind ICE, and I also want a 5-year moratorium on immigration. We have bitten off more than we can chew, and we have so many immigrants in this country now who haven't assimilated. We now are at the highest point we've ever been in our history for new immigrants to this country, so we need to stop the influx and let the assimilation process take hold.
So I'm good. There we go. Somebody set me up here. I'm a businessman. I'm going to shoot straight, ladies and gentlemen. The reason we have an immigration problem is because the Democrats left the border wide open. Walls work. We had one in Berlin, in Germany, for about 40 years, and I know as a young boy growing up, people didn't get across that wall. So the Democrats have deliberately stonewalled us, no pun intended, and now we have an amnesty problem. And now it sounds like we have to define a settlement issue. We have to stop settling, ladies and gentlemen, and we have to put America first, and we need to get the people out because they are breaking the law. That's it.
The reason amnesty should not be allowed is because it's for two reasons. One, it's unfair. You have people waiting in line 10 or 20 years in other countries to come here legally in the right way. Secondly, it creates the wrong incentives. It leaves people 20 or 30 years from now with an open door. Hey, maybe I can come back and eventually get free citizenship. Everything that I've stood for years has always been no amnesty, never. It's also been for deporting illegal immigrants that have been here. My estimation is 15 to 20. I think President Trump's on the higher end of that. I support him fully in that. Things that I've also called for on the business side, we need to require E-Verify for every business. Right now, it's just allowed for government employees only. And so we need to make sure that every business is verifying that their employees are citizens of the United States. There's another law that needs to be implemented, and that's that you remain in your country to seek asylum. You don't come to the border. It has to be done the right way. My family's history is this. My wife came to this country 50 years ago, really with this thought from her dad. We're going to come to the country legally. We're going to come to the country loving our country and speaking the English as the first language, and that's the way it needs to be.
Thank you. So a little audience participation here. Show of hands, how many of you think that Washington has a spending problem? Show of hands here. That's what I thought. Candidates, you can see what the people think in this room. Washington has a long history of passing massive budgets with very little accountability. Do you support zero-based budgeting? And what specific changes would you push to force fiscal discipline that separates you from the rest of the field? And we'll start with Mr. Bondar, then go to Mr. Yarbrough, and then go to Mr. Heslop.
First change is very simple. Congress doesn't get paid until the budget is ratified and fixed. No checks for Congress. And I'm not very popular, probably in D.C. with this message, but I'm not being backed by everybody in D.C. I'm being backed by people. And people, I'm telling you, as a business leader, I didn't get paid unless I balanced my budget. I ran a company, and I had to balance my budget. Everybody sitting here has to balance their budget at the end of every month. And it's hypocrisy that we let our government leaders get away with this. So, I would say this. We have an absolute obligation to get our finances together in this country, or we're going to be bankrupt. And sometimes I wonder if that's not the plan. So send somebody to Congress who's going to actually crack down and say, hey, I'm not taking a paycheck until we get our finances in order. And that I'll stand by.
So we fought the Democrats basically to a tie in D.C. We're not going to move a lot of freight there. One thing we can do is that we can make permanent the Doge cuts that the President and Elon Musk have highlighted. Now that's a winner. Why? Because they're limited specific issues that are great PR stories that we can win as conservatives. We ought to be about that. I'm really proud to be endorsed in this race by the House Freedom Caucus, who more than any other group in Congress fights to cut spending every time these CR resolutions come up. I'm committed to be a member of that caucus, a strong member who's going to fight for fiscal responsibility on a team with people who are like-minded. That's what it takes to get stuff done in the Article 1 branch, and I'm committed to doing it. Thanks.
Okay, well, I'm one of those immigrants. I think there's another one here too, but I'm here legally. Well, we have to be honest. In every election campaign, you've got a lot of Republicans running saying, I'm a fiscal conservative, we're going to balance the budget, and the deficit just keeps going up and up and up. And Biden and Trump are the two biggest culprits, about $4 trillion each in debt. So we have to be honest. I've got a plan to balance the budget and get rid of the national debt, but it's going to require a lot of changes. But it's not going to hit the middle class in the guts. But it's going to be a very, very tough job. But you can't have a nation that's the greatest nation in the world running its fiscal house the way we do. Because what we have at the moment is we've got two really big canoes, one filled by Democrats, one filled by Republicans, going down a river at an ever-increasing pace, and soon they're going to go over the waterfall, and we've got to fix it.
Thank you, Mr. Heslop. Candidates, will you please make sure the mic is very close to the mouth so that all the voters in the back of the room can hear you as well, please.
Next, we'll move on to energy and cost of living. Families are feeling the strain of high gas and grocery prices. How would your energy policy lower costs quickly, and how does your approach differ from others when it comes to balancing domestic production, regulation, and energy independence? This one will start with Mr. Bondar, followed by Mr. Montanez, followed by Mr. Vaziri.
Drill, baby, drill. Texas,
They're stealing our wealth. They're putting limitations for years on domestic oil. And we're shipping gas, we're shipping oil from across the world, burning oil to move oil. It's crazy. Why don't we have domestic independence here in this country? I think America has to, for the sake of national security, our citizens have a domestic energy plan. And I believe that right now we're being really sold out by some of our elected officials, the EPA, the Democrats, and climate change is a scam. And they're saying that we can't have access to these resources, but we don't really have a reliable, alternative. We need to have more real farms than we do wind farms. And that's a fact. Thank you.
Energy independence. Energy independence is the easiest way for us to decrease costs across the board. We need to ensure that we have a sound and solid infrastructure spending plan. At the end of the day, we need to drill, but we also need to make sure that the infrastructure that we do invest in makes sense. So if you go out to West Texas, one of the principal topics that a lot of the oil and gas companies shared with me was that we didn't have a natural gas processing facility out there. And if they had that, that would give them the energy infrastructure needs that they have to increase the production. So energy production, oil and gas infrastructure spending, all needs to be streamlined. That needs to be our focus, and that's the best way that we can move forward.
Thank you. I think one of the most important things for us to focus on is actually some of the incredible growth that we're going to have here in Texas, data centers. Data centers are going to require a lot of energy, and I think there's no cleaner form of energy than nuclear energy. I think we've been lied to historically, been told that nuclear energy is not clean, it's dirty energy. It's not true. I think we need to focus on bringing nuclear energy to Texas and helping data centers have all the energy that we have to compete with China. And by the way, the answer to China earlier, China lost all of our tech companies. I actually don't think President Trump is doing enough. I know he has his hands tied because of, you don't want to mess with the nuclear power too much, but China lost every single one of our tech companies, Google, Facebook, you name it, they're all blocked. Lastly, I do agree with drill, baby drill, but America First is exactly what President Trump is doing. Venezuela was exporting 400,000 barrels of oil, or the total of 600,000 barrels of oil daily to China, our adversary, and Iran was basically giving away 1.5 million barrels of oil daily to China. President Trump understands that we need to block, basically make sure we secure the energy and not allow our adversaries to have access to energy.
In follow-up to all three of you, you all said drill, baby, drill, or increase drilling. My follow-up question is, what specific action could Congress take in order to actually increase drilling? And we'll go in the same order.
Yeah. If I recall, Joe Biden, he took away a lot of land, a lot of leases for oil, a lot. And that is a big problem. If people don't have the ability, if our domestic drilling companies don't have the ability to be able to get leases, they cannot drill. The federal government with the Biden administration, it rooted out our ability to be able to drill domestically. As somebody in Congress, I'm going to support opening up leases and going back to normalcy and going back to energy independence. Thank you.
Permitting as well. So one issue that we encountered when I went out there and spoke out with folks in West Texas is that the bureaucracy is overwhelming. The permitting process that it takes and the time that it takes for these companies to be able to access and push forward drilling and access to the water table, a lot of other topics. They just need less government and allow the local government to be able to streamline those processes for them to be able to drill.
I think we're betrayed by the Obama administration. It started under the Obama administration. He put a moratorium on drilling in the Gulf, really to destroy states like Texas and Louisiana that support Republican candidates. And and then shamelessly, he went out and told the companies in Brazil to come drill that same Gulf Gulf America that we proudly call today. I think, the Biden administration blocked the Keystone pipeline, and that was also a way that we were going to get a lot of energy from Canada. And then also, basically putting moratoriums or blocking getting permits to drill here in the United States are big issues that, the Democrats really have caused, and President Trump is really pursuing.
Okay, so this question will actually go to all candidates. I know we spent all that time saying that you wouldn't answer every question, and here's one you all will. But we're going to be brief with this one. Let me give you the question. I want you all to think of it, and then I'll tell you what we plan on doing with it. So the question is, if you could eliminate one federal program or department outright, which would it be? So think on that while I tell you what we're going to do here. Please keep your initial answer brief. We're just going to go down the row with everybody. Then we're going to have an opportunity to hear why your answer perhaps is better than one of your candidates. As we're trying to find the differences between you guys, all of you claim to be conservative, all of you claim to want to do very similar things. We want to really highlight those differences. So this will give us an opportunity to see where your minds as candidates are when it comes to looking at Congress. So again, the question is, if you could eliminate one federal program or department outright, which would it be? We'll start with Mr. Heslop.
Well, I think we're partway on the way to doing one was the education department. I was a professor.
Mr. Heslop, thank you, the education department. We are going to go do a follow-up. We're just hearing from everybody just so we can see what everybody's initial answer is. Mr. Bondar.
I'm going to stand pat and go education department as well.
Okay. Mr. Yarbrough.
Y'all are 3 for 3. I'll do the same one.
All right, Mr. Day.
4 for 4, education department.
Mr. Montanez, are you going to vary things up, or?
I thought I was going to be the only one to say that, Department of Education.
Well,
Mr.
I
Binkley.
could answer for everybody.
I'll step out on a limb. I think we need to get rid of whatever department's in charge of the Environmental Protection Agency. And so whether that's Department of Energy and how that impacts, but whatever that's doing is keeping us from truly growing. There's plenty of those agencies, but that's one key.
Okay, Mr. Vaziri.
There are roughly about 183 or so federal agencies. The worst run agency by far is the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. And they don't answer to Congress because they're self-funded, and it's the worst run agency by far in the United States government.
Okay, so we'll do a quick follow-up then. Mr. Binkley, you named a different department than the first 5, so give us about 30 seconds as to why you think the EPA would be more appropriate to address firsthand.
Well, we just talked about energy. So first of all, Texas runs America, and energy security is national security. So as we think about how we're going to be sovereign as a nation, well, it's going to be rare earth minerals, it's going to be us exploring nuclear energy, it's going to be us being independent and sovereign. And the Department of Energy, whatever's under the EPA, that is putting constraints on every single major organization that wants to make us energy independent. So we have to stop them or limit them and make them impactful only. But right now, whenever the government gets involved, they get involved in too many independent, growth-oriented companies, and we need to stop them.
Thank you. Mr. Vaziri, you also provided a different answer than the rest. Would you want to clarify?
Sure. You all have seen all the abuse that's been going on with the H-1B program. Essentially, a lot of tech companies, and not just tech companies, now educational institutions here in Texas, are basically using the H-1B program and bringing labor from other countries, not because we don't have all that skill set here. We do, 100%. They're just basically doing it to get cheaper labor, and they're completely abusing the system. The USCIS is the only federal agency that is completely self-funded through fees, and they just keep increasing the fees, and they don't have to answer to Congress, and they're a terribly run organization.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to border security. Millions crossed the border illegally over the past several years. What specific border security policies do you believe actually work, and what would you prioritize on day one that distinguishes your approach from the other candidates on the stage? This one will start with Mr. Day, followed by Mr. Binkley, followed by Mr. Vaziri.
Number one, E-Verify has been around. Why are we not using E-Verify? We need to crack down on companies that are not verifying that it's U.S. citizens working at their companies. So let's get some raids, and there's actually no reason whatsoever that every business in America is not using E-Verify to tell us that it's U.S. citizens working at their company.
So I really believe this, that there's several things. E-Verify is one, but it's just simply not mandated. And so it's only mandated if you're a government agency. So Congress has to act. President has to act on it as well. The other is this thing I mentioned earlier about remaining in your country when you seek asylum. The way it's done here in the United States is they actually come to our border. We have to stop that suction device. Well, that's what happened under the Biden administration when millions of people are lining up at our border. So we ought to have a new law where you remain in your country, seek asylum, and if you're granted for that, then you come here legally, you wait in your country for that. In catch and release, there's so many different things, but having greater border security with technology and towers and money, we need to make sure we have a barrier that truly keeps people out of our country, and our maritime waters are watched with technology. Those are several things I do right away.
I think Ryan's exactly right. I think if you're a refugee, I think you need to stay in the current country that you're applying from. My family, we're political refugees from Iran. We moved here in 1989. We waited in Germany until our refugee status and our application was approved and came here with a green card. Now, if you let people just come in and sign up and disappear, you're gonna have to go find these people. That's a huge loophole. The other thing is, this wide open borders. The United States is the only country in the world that has no borders and no border security. Now we do, but there's no other country in the world where you don't have a national ID. Every country in the world, you have a national ID, which, by the way, could also be used to keep election integrity. Name one other country where, state by state, every state issues their own ID and you don't have a national ID to know who you are, where you're going, what you're doing, and to have also election integrity. That national ID could be used to have election integrity to make sure that people are not voting in multiple states, people are not cheating the system, people are, there's just so much abuse going on in election fraud, and a national ID system, I think will alleviate that.
Can you make a short comment?
Okay, please, Mr. Heslop, can we put 30 seconds? Okay, we'll do two quick.
30 seconds.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're talking about two different situations. The broad group of people who want to come into America. But the original meaning of asylum is someone who's facing death in their own country and has to get out of there. If you're going to make them wait in their own country, we'll be bringing in their coffin, not them. Asylum is meant for people fleeing political persecution, not for 200,000 Mexicans who want to come here and work. So there's two different types.
Thank you. Mr. Montanez?
Yeah, I don't agree with what you just said, but there were a lot of topics that Ryan talked on, and we talked about stopping incentives, E-Verify, these are all great. Something to point out, we have a wall for now. We don't have a forever wall. And the main issue behind all of the gaps that we have in these walls is that all of the land across the border is, can you hear me? All of the land across the border is owned by the states. So every state outsources the construction of that wall to a different company. So as you can imagine, the different companies provide different ways to construct that wall. So you have gaps that people come through. My idea is to have the Great Wall of America where the United States government secures the land on that border, and we make sure that we have all of the technology and the right personnel to ensure that no one ever comes in this country the wrong way again.
Thank you.
Can I respond to the embassy question, or really it's about whether you remain in your country or not?
We'll give him 30 seconds. We'll give Mr. Binkley 30 seconds.
First of all, I understand your point, and I think that's worth noting. Sometimes you're in a crisis. Ellie's dad, he was in the 1950s, Korea was being invaded, and they had nowhere to go, and so there was a war. He ended up being in the army, and then when he applied for citizenship, he was an interpreter for General Trudeau. He ended up going to Japan, where he waited 10 years. So sometimes there's neighbor countries and neighbor places with embassies if they're fleeing, but I think there should be embassies in place that can go where they're safe nearby. The point is we can't have them travel thousands of miles to our border. That's not the safest way.
Okay, and Mr. Vaziri?
And I actually agree with Ryan. My father was given a death sentence by the mullahs in Iran, and he was awaiting execution. We had to flee. We did wait in Germany, a third country, and we came here legally, and I disagree with the gentleman.
Okay, thank you. So this next question will go to Mr. Yarbrough, Mr. Bondar, and Mr. Binkley. Kind of along the same lines, and as we're talking about E-Verify and looking at what potential illegal immigration does to not only our citizens but to our workers, let's talk about this for a moment. President Trump has said that H-1B visas can depress wages, but has also said that America doesn't have the special talent right now and we do need to import the workers. Do you agree? If yes, how do you protect American workers first? And if not, what would you say as a member of Congress to try and persuade him to change course? Mr. Yarborough.
I think Americans are capable of doing any job we need them to do, and I would argue very forcefully that I think Americans are capable of doing any job we need them to do. And I support the President's general approach to immigration and visa reform, which is to say, we are a country, we are a nation, we're not an economic zone. Our immigration policy should be first and foremost about restoring national cohesion. The reason all of us feel so nervous, the reason we're all concerned at the things we see going on around our country, is because there are certain norms and ways of life, fundamental assumptions, that a critical mass of people no longer share with us. Things get very expensive, very chaotic, very dangerous when that happens. And the people who suffer most are those who don't have the resources to buffer themselves from the chaos that's created in common spaces and common institutions, like the military, our public schools, businesses that have been taken over by woke ideology, or used by certain foreign nationals to basically exercise a kind of ethnic nepotism. That means that Americans are at a disadvantage, right? The jobs that we create here should be prioritizing Americans. It's the American worker, the American student, the American family that should be the objective and the preferred class by our immigration policy.
I'm going to keep it very simple. President Trump is right on this issue because those visas are granted and they're permitted and they're not illegal. The problem we have is with illegal immigration where people are coming in unchecked, unknown, and they're trying to change our culture and our country. What President Trump is saying is we need to have a legitimate immigration policy. And I've heard President Trump many times say that he believes in a reasonable immigration policy. But on the same token, I believe what we need to do is we need to invest in trades. Too much is put into just having a college education. I have a college education. I graduated in 3 years and I got a master's and a bunch of other things. But guess what's really important? Real life experience. And we need to foster the trades because someday with AI, we're going to have all the answers in the intellectual department, but we're not going to have the people to be able to fix the furnaces and the plumbing and the things that need to be fixed. So we need to start looking forward as a country and investing in the future with the right areas of labor.
Correctly, I believe it was, do I agree with President Trump that we don't have the people right now for some of these jobs? And I think he's referring to technology jobs primarily. We basically have to import about 200,000 jobs a year. I believe we've created probably 5 million jobs in India alone. The reason is that we are behind in this one area. Jobs that require training in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So that's specifically what he's talking about. We need to create more students that are up to the par and actually learning at higher levels. And right now, America's been falling behind in education. So it's time that we actually do something about this. And so we have a problem. So we have to raise up a new for education department for trades and also train kids to learn these STEM areas better. And then those numbers will come down over time. But very specifically, he's saying we have needs today. The technology jobs are on the rise. We have to produce more students that are ready to do it. We can do it, but we have to raise the initiatives.
Can I respond to that?
Sure, Mr. Yarborough.
So I disagree that we're at a disadvantage, I disagree that we're at a disadvantage, at least as to the pedigrees of those that we import for these quote-unquote technology jobs, because our own students aren't qualified for them. The vast majority of our immigration system is a scam. The H-1B system is a scam. There are degree mills that these people go to, they get fake degrees, they come here, take jobs from Americans, and then we're sold this narrative that our own people aren't ready to do these jobs. That's not true. In fact, these foreign countries, they don't send their best. They send those that aren't qualified. And so I'm unapologetic about the fact that we, as a country, have what we need to be the dominant force in the world that we have been and we can be.
We will follow up. I do want to ask this, though, and include this in some of your follow-up, if you don't mind, Mr. Bonder and Mr. Binkley. I want to make sure we're clear, because it looks like there is a difference here. Mr. Bonder and Mr. Binkley, are you saying that the H-1B visa program, as it is now, would not need to change And if you do recognize the need for it to change, how would you do that without acknowledging that American workers still might not have an opportunity?
Well, yeah, let me just say, first of all, I don't disagree, Jason, at all with what you're saying. I mean, I believe America is exceptional. We have the talent. It's just that we have more jobs that are needed here, so there's a gap right now, and I think that's what President Trump, so I agree with your premise. And they're undermining us. They pay people, goodness, a third of what we're paying here. So we need to be able to pay higher. My point is this, we just need to raise up our kids that are focused on this type of degree so they can have some better jobs and get them ready for it.
Mr. Bondar.
I'm going to make a statement, and it's very simple. America needs to be more of a country club than a refugee camp. And I know that may not sound politically correct, but it's time we get brutally honest. We can't financially afford to not. So I believe that we really have to categorically stop allowing people to come to this country, get on all the health care, all the benefits, and all the different things, anchor babies and everything else. We just talked about our budget. We are on the verge of bankruptcy, ladies and gentlemen. We have got to fight the border, and it starts with what's going on with undocumented workers.
Let me comment.
Okay, well, just a moment. Mr. Vaziri, you can take a moment, and then Mr. Day will come and let you say a few words as well. This is clearly a hot button issue, so I like that we're exploring this. So we will get to all the candidates who would wish to speak on that, but Mr. Vaziri, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Day. I think we've been lied to by the billionaire class and the elites, and they've told us that all of these low-tech jobs are going to be exported to China. And I'll give you an example. Right here in Richardson, Texas, we have 10,000 jobs in Nortel networks. Our politicians allowed basically the theft of intellectual property. All those patents that Nortel networks had were stolen by Huawei. Today, Huawei earns $120 billion a year, and they have switching technology that they sell to our allies, and they spy on our allies. Those are jobs that were here. They're all gone because Nortel went out of business.
So I've been in the headhunting business for 28 years, and I'll tell you, 20 years ago, to get an H-1B, we had to advertise that job and see if American workers applied. Over time, that stopped being a requirement, and companies, especially big companies, were just jumping out there using H-1B, and then when an employee was there, they were basically an indentured servant because it was very difficult for them to move. So President Trump is exactly right that it has depressed wages, and it's exactly right that we do have to reform the H-1B process.
I have a 10-second add-on to what I was saying, if I can.
You got 10 seconds.
10 seconds. We need to tariff the companies by taxing the companies that are hiring the people with H-1B visas. Do what President Trump's doing on the manufacturing side, just raise the prices. When they import the jobs, make it an equal playing field by tariffing them. It worked in manufacturing, it'll work here as well.
Speaking of prices, we'll move on to healthcare and Obamacare. Healthcare costs remain a major burden for Texas families. What reforms do you support, repeal, replacement, competition, or something else? And how does your approach differ from those seeking this seat? We'll start with Mr. Binkley, followed by Mr. Heslop, followed by Mr. Vaziri.
I had a real quick story. I had a visit with a doctor, 90 years old. He said, Ryan, I delivered my first baby in 1969. You know how much I charged? I said, no. He said, $100. And I said, if you look that up today, it's about $1,000. But the average cost for a baby is about $35,000. That's half a year's average wage. That's how broken our system is. We have monopolies in the healthcare providers, in the insurance companies, as well as the pharmacy benefit managers. I would bring a capitalistic approach to them, demonopolize the oligopolies there, bring a free market approach, help savings accounts for every individual. This is the only thing we ask for in America today. We no longer ask this question, how much does it cost? We have to bring price transparency and visibility and have a whole new system there because the foundation of it's broken. And we can fix that with a true marketplace approach. We actually have a plan for it. We've implemented it already and talked about it. We have it written down, and it's available to you if you'd like to see it.
Okay. Well, I come from a different environment because where I come from, any hospital treatment is free. So broken leg, car accident, heart attack, transplant, whatever, they're much. And going to the doctor's free for children under 14. Adults, I think, pay $50 or $80. Now, we can't do that here. The electorate wouldn't support it, and we couldn't afford it because we spend much more on defence than other countries, and we have an interest bill on the deficit that is even higher than our defence spending. So we have to privatise it. Government is inefficient. Have to privatise it. Encourage some people just to get some type of insurance, like a young person. They're probably not going to need to go to hospital unless they have a car accident. So they could just have major surgery insurance. I would also, and this might be...
Thank you. What I think this gentleman actually said about free healthcare, that's a fiction. I know Canadians that, supposedly, pay 62% taxes and they have free healthcare. But if you want a hip surgery, you have to wait in line for 5 years to get hip surgery. So that doesn't work. And I think President Obama really destroyed this country with Obamacare. Doctors are not making any more money. People are getting less care, and all that money got squeezed and sent to the insurance companies. I think the way to really fix that is what President Trump is planning on doing, which is allowing, not providing monopolies to single payers and basically allowing a marketplace where multiple states could bid on and basically do the best care. Having the best companies, having the best care that's basically across state lines, where it doesn't have to be just within a single state. But we got to fix healthcare. I think it's embarrassing that we carry the rest of the world on our backs. A GLP-1 here in the United States costs about $1,000, $1,100. In Europe, it's like less than $100. In Canada, it's less than $100. So we subsidize the rest of the world's drugs.
Mr. Hassel, with all due respect, sir, what you just said there, I have to take issue, and I mean this with respect, but Milton Friedman said there is no such thing as a free lunch. And this idea that we have free health care, ladies and gentlemen, this is the kind of junk that they've been feeding to get votes to pass things through in blue cities for too long, and the reason why our healthcare system is broken. There is no such thing as free healthcare. We have to stop taking the bait. Free healthcare and free this and free that is why hamburgers went from $12 to $22 and we can't afford anything. It's time we get Americans healthy again. It's time that we cut out the bureaucracy of red tape. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you didn't listen to what I said. I said that that scheme would not be acceptable here. I said that very clearly. The population would not support the taxes, but in some countries they do, and the system is not as bad as some people make out. Well, I mean, that's your opinion.
It's socialist medicine. Socialist medicine's bad. Yes, sir.
I have a follow-up for Mr. Binkley and Mr. Kazir. You both referenced a marketplace approach with healthcare being the federal government's largest bill, just under $2 trillion. That seems to be a very big market manipulator. How do we have a market-based approach while having the federal government still be such a large player in the market?
Well, understanding the fundamental problem is very important. So if you run a 30-year graph on regular CPI inflation compared to healthcare inflation for 30 years is 40% higher than regular inflation. So why is it? The fundamental reason is because government's involved in it. So if you have private insurance today, you're paying about 50% more than everybody else on any government-backed system. We have to get the government out. The way to do it, though, is to start with the free marketplace, and you have to begin system by system. It's in all three areas. The providers have bought all the doctors. They own them 80% in the marketplace now, so we need competition. And then you have to create small business associations so small businesses can join together and have a free marketplace. There's a lot to it. You can't answer it in 1 minute. It's the best I got for the time.
I think Ryan's right. Competition. I think when the federal government gets involved, you can't have socialized medicine. When the federal government gets involved and they put their foot on the scale and help, specific insurance companies that are giving them political donations, that doesn't work. Some of the other issues is a lot of drug companies are not incentivized to, because of the patent issue. You basically get a patent on a drug, and it runs out in 20 years, it becomes general, and then everyone can make that. So there needs to be some intellectual property protection to incentivize drug companies to make drugs cheaper, to bring prices down.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk for a moment about the administrative state. And this question will go to Mr. Heslop, Mr. Day, and Mr. Montanez. Unelected federal agencies wield enormous power over Americans' daily lives. How would you rein in the administrative state, and what distinguishes your approach from others who may support reform but differ on how far to go? Mr. Heslop, we'll start with you.
Well, it certainly needs to be done. I think the Supreme Court recently came out and tried to limit some of the power of these agencies. That you can't just invent things that Congress has not given you the power to do. So we need to clamp down on all these bureaucrats issuing all these edicts and regulations and rules. That's one thing we need to do. But I believe in capitalism, so as much as possible, we need to have things in the private sector. And I don't want to be misquoted. I believe in the private sector for medicine. I was just telling you where I came from. I mean, I could have said the weather's good in Auckland. I was telling you how I grew up.
Boy, this is my hot button. Starve the beast. Starve the beast. We started it with Doge, and I'll tell you, if we get rid of 1 million bureaucrats, we're going to have less paperwork nonsense that we have right now. President Trump's done a great job cutting through the red tape, but we've got to go farther and faster. And you had the question earlier about zero-based budgeting. That's one thing that I've talked about. With a $38 trillion deficit, I have advocated that every government agency come before Congress, every single one at a time, and defend their existence, and also defend every dollar that they spend is benefiting the American people. If you do that, if you cut the heck out of the bureaucracy, then they're not going to be around to gum up the works of the of people trying to get things done.
I agree. I believe that we need to get government out of the way. Government's too big. The power needs to go back to the people. So it's not just term limits on congressmen or senators or the president. We should also have term limits on the bureaucrats that are in Washington, D.C. There are too many folks that are working in the government. That's where we need to start. We need to ensure that we not only codify everything that's been going on, but we cut back on all the bureaucracies. We support Doge, we go deeper, we focus on zero-based budgeting, and then we expand that Doge to the state and the local agencies as well.
Mr. Montanez, you mentioned term limits just now. Just as a very quick follow-up for everyone, just as a show of hands, do all of you support term limits for Congress, and would you commit right now to self-imposing a term limit should you be successful in this race?
I'll start with that. So I've actually signed the U.S. term limits. I believe it's absolutely necessary, but as I mentioned, it should be extended also to the bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., because if I'm there 2 terms, but that staff is there for 30 years, who really has the power? Think about that. So it's not just us. It's not a swamp, guys. A swamp is an ecosystem. Good things come out of a swamp. It's a sewer, and we need to clean it up.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that. I have also signed a term limit pledge. And I'll say one other important thing. We have to be very careful who we elect. People don't give money to people with no strings attached. Careful on who the candidates across the board are being voted for. Look at the filings, see where the money is coming from. Because people, this is how it's done. Congress and the Senate and all these different branches of government, the NGOs and the people that want to control them, they give them campaign contributions, they get them in DC, and then they own them. We have to break that cycle.
I want to follow that up when I get a chance.
It was really just a show of hands question of who supports term limits and who is volunteering to say that they will self-impose them should they be elected.
Term limits, yes.
I support term limits. It would be 2 terms in the Senate, 6 in the House. That would be 12 years in either branch. Personally, I would believe in 3 terms, 6 years, and then, as the founders said, they envisioned ordinary citizens coming to Washington for a while and then going back to their normal life. Oh, and it also set the age for being president to 71. You can't be elected if you've reached 71. We can't have 80-year-olds in the modern age in the White House. Too dangerous.
I disagree with that wholeheartedly. We've got the greatest president in the world right now, and I'm so excited that he's here. And I'm so excited he's alive. Going stronger than most people in their 40s. So, real quick on term limits, I agree with them. I think my main thought is too, we need finance reform when it comes to actually funding politicians in their office. Campaign finance reform is huge. I don't think anybody should be able to get, $1 billion or $250 million. These guys can stay in office forever. And so you need to make it a little bit different on finance reform. It goes hand in hand.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so there are a couple of self-funding millionaires up here. I am not one of them. The Lord has never called me to go make a bunch of money. He called me to sharpen myself so that I'm ready for the cultural fight that we are all in, and all of us are pitching in to try and fight. Now, what happens if you don't allow other people who support candidates to fund them? Well, then only rich people can run. I don't want to live in a world like that. I want to live in a world in which rich people and poor people, middle-class people, wealthy people, can all stand up, get the resources they need to get their message out there, and make sure that people in their communities know who they are and what they stand for. Now, I have incredibly broad support in this race. From Governor Abbott to Joanne Fleming, Grassroots America, We the People, to the American Principles Project in DC. And I will put my supporters and those who are getting behind us up against anybody that's running for office across the board. Thank you.
I don't disagree with Mr. Yarborough that there are millionaires here that are self-funding, but also we got to make sure that the dark money doesn't run our elections. I think the Good Old Boy Network has decided who their candidate is in this race, and basically this is like Kamala Harris, basically completely bypassing the democratic process. We're over here wasting our time. We're having a primary over here, but the establishment, the swamp, is Governor Abbott doing a good job? He's had the Muslim games here in Texas the last few years. Is he the person that we want to take his endorsement of a candidate, or the dark money, or all the people that are basically putting money in? But we should ask who here supports Citizens United. That's an important question.
May I respond to that?
It's my turn. So,
we're going to let him have an opportunity to respond because he did receive Governor Abbott's endorsement.
So yes, Governor Abbott has endorsed me in this race. His endorsement came a couple days ago. But I am very proud of a number of other endorsements we've received from Representative Brian Harrison, who's been on the forefront of the fight against the swamp. Right? Joanne Fleming and Grassroots America, We the People, True Texas Project, Julie McCarty, Fran Rhodes. These are friends, mentors, right? Texas Homeschool Coalition and Tim Lambert, Texas Gun Rights and Chris McNutt, the Congressman Keith Self, right, who founded the Sharia-Free Caucus, a caucus that I am committed to being a part of. Our support is broad. It's broad because we're putting in the work to serve you. We're putting in the work to get a message out there that resonates with people. And I'm very, very proud of our supporters.
Thank you. Well, first of all, just as the aspect of, I think you mentioned something about being self-funded, or, I have no problem with people giving to campaigns, Jason. I think that's not what I meant. I feel like this, though, it does help when you've got a broad base of supporters, and not letting one billionaire come and give you all your money. That's what I was talking about. We've had 2,501 individual donors give to our campaign, and it's about 50-50 with what we've raised and what I've given in. And I'm really proud of that because it's a grassroots perspective. It takes a lot to get somebody to write a check. It takes a lot. That means they believe in you, they've heard in you. And I'm so proud of the endorsements we've had nationally as well as statewide, but the most important endorsements that I've had are from you right here in Rockwall. We've had leaders here, county commissioners, mayors here, because I've spent time with you for 5 months, and precinct chairs and veterans groups here, and I'm very thankful for you, Rockwall. Appreciate it.
Getting back to the original intent of the question, it wasn't who had the most endorsements. The question was term limits. And I pledged to just have 2 terms. And also, Paul, last week at a forum, had a great idea, which is that congressmen have to spend half of their time in the district. They can't just hide in Washington. I thought that was a brilliant idea, and the aim is to get our elected officials closer to the people. And I think anything that does that, term limits and Paul's idea, we need to implement.
Thank you. All right. That was fun. We've all mentioned deficit spending at some point tonight. This question is going to be for everyone. Is deficit spending ever justified outside of wartime or national emergencies? Where do you draw that line, and how does your fiscal philosophy differ from your opponents? And we'll start at the end down here with Mr. Zier.
In early 1900, I think our tax rate was 2%, and only if you made more than 200,000. And over the years, that's ballooned, and mainly because what you said, because of wartime, right? And now we've just gotten used to just keep printing money. You know, we printed 10 trillion, 2 trillion here, 2 trillion there. For COVID, we saw the abuse and everything that's happened. The more money that's in Washington, the more corruption we're going to have. And from balance of the budget perspective, I mean, China's taken a huge amount of advantage of us. I mean, one company like Walmart accounted for 160 billion of our trade deficit. Now today, Amazon, 60% of people that sell on Amazon are people based in China. They're basically accessing our markets, and Amazon is doing their dirty work by basically providing fulfillment services for sellers in China that are here selling to our people. What are they doing? They're basically completely replacing the small business. The small business in the United States today is being replaced by big sellers in China.
I believe we should have a balanced budget amendment, and then as a CEO and a leader, I recognize there's times of war, there's times of pain, like during COVID, where things happen. We employ a little over 400 people across the nation in our company today. When COVID hit, we took an 80% drop first week in sales. We lost millions, and it didn't take long before we only had a few weeks left for payroll because the country was shut down, the government shut it down. That should never happen again. We had to take PP money, many people did, but the problem with PP money is the country didn't make them pay it back. Over about a year and a half, we were able to save money, and we didn't have to. Well, you know this, we didn't have to, it was forgiven. It was forgiven, it was tax-free, but we decided to pay it back over time, and we did, because I knew this is the problem with our country. We're addicted to deficit spending. And until we get this right, we'll never save our country for the next generation. I'm running in this race because it's time to bring business leadership to Washington, D.C., just like President Trump did in the White House. We need that in the people's house. We need true leadership financially, and that's what I'm prepared to bring.
So I worked for a multinational company for many years. Almost 300,000 folks. I was a top executive. I led thousands of folks, different areas around the world. And the one market that everyone wants to come to is the United States of America. I mean, no one wants to go to Senegal. No one wants to go to the Philippines. They want to come here. So President Trump is right when he talks about tariffs. Now, when we're talking about big companies, we need to run the United States the same way, zero-based budgeting. If you're running any company, whether it's a small business or a large organization, if you spend more than you have, you're not going to last very long. And that's what I believe, and that's what I'll take to Washington, D.C. I think it's time for us to understand that we can't continue to run a house of cards. We need to spend only what we have, unless there are extenuating circumstances like war or COVID or some situation like this.
So 10 years ago, there's a U.S. general asked what our number one vulnerability was, and he didn't say it was China or Iran or Russia. He said our number one vulnerability was our deficit, and that was $10 trillion ago. $38 trillion debt is an existential threat. We've got to stop kicking the can down the road. Zero-based budgeting, again, get every government agency to come before Congress and justify their damn existence. We can't keep doing this. But a direct answer to your question, wartime is the only time that actually I would approve any deficit spending. Only wartime.
Very quickly, just to set the record straight, on an issue that was brought up previously, I'm proud to have hundreds and hundreds of individual donors, just to be clear about that. And I'm proud to have support from people right here in Rockwall, like Councilman Melba Jeffus, like Randy Long, a great precinct chair, like Dennis London. Many good people getting behind us, and I'm grateful for that. In terms of spending, I think one of the things the President has made clear through his administration is that information to the American people is a great way to cut fraud, waste, and abuse. And our immigration system is the reason why so much of the public services and goods that we once enjoyed, the average American once enjoyed, are now unavailable. And so I think the immigration issue is the issue for our day. I think it touches everything. And I think the more we investigate, the more shocked we're going to be at the kind of abuse that's gone on from those who come to our country not because they want to be American, but because they want to take from us. And so I go back to that issue as the most important one, and would back both the President and our brave ICE agents to the hilt in enforcing our immigration laws and making sure that our country is for us and our children.
Jace, I don't think anybody up here is really trying to pick on you. I think the real question is just everybody has a federal election disclosure, and you extended it, and I think that's what some of the candidates were alluding to. But back to the question at hand, you know, a lot of people believe that Obama was the worst president, Joe Biden was a joke, terrible president. Woodrow Wilson was really our worst president. He really instituted the federal income tax. Lincoln had it shortly during the Civil War, but Woodrow Wilson brought back the Federal Reserve and the income tax and instituted it. And then in 1970, I think, Nixon took us off the gold standard. And the problem we have is that the government can print unchecked, ungodly amounts of money. I'll give you one example. Take the Dallas Cowboys, take every NFL franchise, take their stadiums, take their merch, take their TV deals. They've been around for 100 years. And it would take 2.8 times more in money than what we sent to Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, we are getting ripped off. We cannot afford to print this money and not be backed on some sort of a monetary gold or some sort of a system. It took about a third of our wealth away.
May I respond to Paul's comment?
Yeah.
Briefly.
Yeah. I'm not sure what Paul's talking about that disclosure. I just want to be clear. I don't know where that's coming from. I'm happy to respond if more substance is given at the time. Thanks.
Before I get into budgeting, let me just mention one thing, because the name's been mentioned a few times, China. First principle of foreign policy, never trust a communist government. Never. I agree with a balanced budget. Obviously, if we're at war, that's different. We have to win the war. I would also, and you have to be very careful about this, if we had a really, really, really bad natural disaster, which we could, let's say the big one strikes in California, and I hate to use California as an example, but let's say there were 500,000 people killed and 1.5 million needed hospital care, and we had to rebuild half the city. I mean, that could happen. That would be another reason for running a deficit, because we just wouldn't have the resources to cope with that. Now, that's a very limited exception. Balance the budget.
You have 10 seconds.
I just want to be very clear, if it's not already obvious. Guys, we don't have an income problem, we have a spending problem. That's the issue. And so, if the person we send to Washington, D.C. needs to be someone that understands how to read a financial statement. I'd like to see a raise of hands of how many people here have actually led large organizations, led a company, can read a financial statement, and can quickly understand, in a very large capacity, what's wrong, what's right, and how to get it done. Can we get a raise of hands? Here, apart from the crowd. How many people have led organizations? Can you read a financial statement?
Profit and loss balance?
Yeah, absolutely. I can.
Well, I can construct them.
So can I.
May I respond to that?
Sure, last one.
I've read over 10,000 financial statements.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, on this similar topic, generational economy and opportunity. Younger Americans are delaying home ownership, marriages, and starting families. What has actually changed economically between generations, and how does your conservative approach address those realities without abandoning core Republican principles? That's the onus of this question, is without abandoning core Republican principles. And this question goes to first Mr. Yarbrough, followed by Mr. Binkley, followed by Mr. Day.
For too long, Republicans have thought playing defense was good enough. Defense isn't good enough. We have to go on offense, and that's no more clear than an issue of affordability and economics for the next generation. I mentioned before that our economic policy as to foreign countries, in particular foreign adversaries, had been to assume that they were playing by free market rules when they weren't, which means that they're the ones who dictate the kind of industry we have here, the job opportunities that are available. And then we have foreign immigrants who go through degree mills and come and compete in our businesses against our college graduates, our high school graduates, and they get special points. Why? Because they're minority status. The person we send from Texas 32 has got to be unapologetic about the fact that we are done playing the Marxist, racist games that the left pushes on us. They try to make us feel bad because we're Christians. We're supposed to welcome the stranger. That doesn't mean that I open the floodgates of my country to hordes of illegals that want to come and take and compete with my sons and daughters and grandchildren for jobs that should be offered to Americans in the first instance. The question you have to ask yourself is, everyone up here is going to say they're an America First candidate. Everybody's been in the fight long enough that you should have scar tissue. You should be able to show the things you've done to stand against the left. That's the candidate you should get behind.
I agree with that. The question was about home affordability for the next generation and for young people. You know, right now, when I bought my first home was in 1997. The average home was about 3 times the age, 3 times the price of the average salary. Today, it's about 6 times the price of the average salary. Our generation owes the next generation to get our budget in line so the real wages is what's important that can truly change this. And how do we do this? It's not about cheap houses. It's about real wages going up. And how we do that is unleash the American economy. We need to get the government out of small business. I help thousands of small businesses grow as part of my career in the last 30 years. That's what I do. It's about getting the government out and getting access to better loans so they can invest again. Entrepreneurship is the DNA of America. Let's unleash small business. They're the #1 employer in America, but they don't get credit. They don't get an invitation to the White House. And let's just get our economy going again and keep inflation down. And that's real wages. When inflation's down and the country's growing at 5% or more, that's when you're going to be able to get raises, and that's when you're truly going to be able to buy the home you want. And not just a small or cheap house, but a good house.
So this is an issue near and dear to my heart, because I've got an older daughter who has rented our rental house for 15 years without buying it. So every year, are you ready to buy this house? So part of it is educating the young people that it is possible. But the main thing is we've got to increase supply. We've got to cut down red tape, because that's when, when a developer buys a piece of land, the clock starts ticking. So we've got to cut down the red tape so we can get things built faster. We also need to be more open to manufactured housing techniques to bring down prices. And as Ryan said, yes, we do have to continue building the economy, and I think I'm seeing hints that the golden age has started, because I think fourth quarter GDP was up 5.2%. So that's the main thing, is getting the economy rolling again.
Can I respond to that? Sure. We have to get away from this conception that because GDP is up, everything's okay. Everything is not okay. And GDP is not a good indicator of how folks are actually existing and surviving in the real world. For example, cost of living adjustments, do they account for interest rates on mortgages? No, right? your interest rate doubles or triples, your mortgage goes up. The CPI doesn't capture that. These old markers that the GOP has used to measure the health of our economy don't account for the real experiences of millennials and Gen Zers. And if we don't get a handle on that, there's a reckoning coming.
All right. I'm going to stay consistent. The definition of inflation is too many dollars chasing too few goods. In COVID-19, they had everything basically shut down. They printed money hand over fist. They gave PPP to everybody. We didn't just start inflation. We set gasoline and fire, and we created the worst inflation, and it took money away from every single person and caused this mess, and I believe deliberately. Now, increasing wages is great, but that's not going to help seniors. Seniors aren't worried about increased wages. Senior citizens are on a fixed budget. What we need to do is we need to stop printing money like it's toilet paper. That takes restraint. And I'm sorry, I just don't think our government officials are looking to do that. We've had 16 continuing resolutions out of 17 years. That's a horrible track record. We got to fix it.
The rebuttal to that is we've been printing way too much money. And the people that understand that there are too many private equity firms and too many massive companies like the BlackRocks of the world, the Blackstones of the world that have trillions of dollars under management. And all they're doing is looking for yield. So they started buying up all the multifamily. There's not enough multifamily funds to start buying. So then they started buying single family. And private equity firms right now they're buying every single plumber. They're buying every single roofing company. They're buying, my doctor just sold to a private equity firm. So now I have to deal with a private equity company every time I go to the doctor's office. President Trump beautifully, I think, said we got to ban private equity firms buying single family home, but we got to stop that. We can't let everything be institutionalized.
So when I mention GDP, there's nominal GDP, which is the gross GDP, but the real GDP, by definition, is that minus inflation. So Jason's right, nominal GDP doesn't matter as much, but real GDP does. President Trump's got inflation down, but the pain we're feeling is from the last 5 years. That's the affordability from Joe Biden and reckless spending and $4 and $5 trillion coming in. And so this is where we have to fix it, is get codified DOGE cuts into law, have a balanced budget, unleash the small business of America by getting government out, then real GDP can happen, and that's what really will bring value.
Just to add one thing, guys, it's not just balanced budget, it's zero-based budgeting, right? Because having a balanced budget, we can dissect that in a million different ways. We want to make sure that we're not spending more than we're taking in. And as I mentioned before, it's not an income issue, it's a spending issue. So what we need to do is make sure that we have less big government, we do more here locally, because who knows what's better for Rockwall than the people here in Rockwall?
Sir, you want to finish this out?
Yeah, I think candidates are making a big mistake, and I think President Trump is hurting himself by denying that some people don't struggle. There are people that struggle every day. Excuse me, for years and years and years. They don't all own a nice car and a nice house. Life is a battle, and we need to recognize that. And that's one reason why I think his poll numbers are going down. You can't deny the reality of the life of tens of millions of people.
Okay, thank you. So let's continue on this conversation, because younger Americans trust government, media, churches, and even corporations far less than previous generations. There's a real pessimism out there. I'm a college professor, and I regularly show my students that the presidency is consistently ranked negatively, Congress negatively. The Supreme Court is actually the only branch that's kind of teetering in the positive right now. So it's obviously a problem. How do you solve it? And I'd like you guys to answer not in a way of just overly broad, we're going to fix the economy or we're going to get Americans working again. That sounds great, and we have no doubt all of you want to do that. But really dig deep, if you don't mind, and find how we correct that problem, and how is your response going to be different than those men you're running against. And this is actually going to be to everyone, so Mr. Heslop, we'll start on this end and go with you. But we are going to hold to a very firm 60 seconds because we still have questions, and we know you're going to want to give your closing remarks, so 60 seconds.
Well, I'll dig deep. One of the big problems we have is the younger generation know almost nothing about the creation of the country, how we became a free people, how the system works, how our system is better than a socialist system or a communist system. They just don't have a sense of history. And we need to fix that in schools. We need to fix it really quickly.
Mr. Bondar.
I ran a business for a long time, and it was about showing clients value. If you don't, they leave. The problem with America is our government is a monopoly, and people don't find value. As a leader of this district, as your new congressman, we have to bring back value to the district. That means money that's going to come back. Everybody works from January to about June for taxes. Some of those tax dollars need to come back to fix Route 66. I had a meeting with the mayor of Heath the other day, Mayor McClure. He told me about drilling and water solutions. It's about partnering with local government, state government to provide real value so your money is not going to gender studies in Ethiopia. It's coming back for this district, for our roads, for our infrastructure, and for our people.
Mr. Yarborough.
H-1B visa reform, immigration reform is key to this problem, not only because those folks who come here to defraud us are burdening the public goods that we offer our citizens, but also because I've said many times they're competing with our folks for jobs with fake degrees when they're unqualified, and our recent college graduates and high school graduates are disadvantaged because they're white. Right? I mean, the racial Marxism that's inherent in the immigration and visa system is a cancer. It's a rot. We need a moratorium on immigration until we get a handle on this. That's what the House Freedom Caucus has called for. We need significant deep reform to the H-1B process so that we're prioritizing and preferring Americans. And I'll say it again. When we operate under the quote-unquote rules of the free market on the international stage, the Chinese Communist Party dictates what sorts of jobs we're able to offer to our citizens. It shouldn't be that way. We should have an industrial policy. We should be specific about what we want and unapologetic about the fact that we're going to use things like tariffs, as the president has done, to get there.
Thank you, Mr. Yarborough. Mr. Day.
And part of this answer is trite, and that's that we have to get people that you can trust back into Washington. And just think, Mr. Smith goes to Washington. We have sent scumbags to Washington who are slick and have lied to us. They talk about conservative values, and then they immediately jettison those as soon as they get to Austin or get to Washington. We've been betrayed time and time again. We'd be insane to not have a low opinion of Congress. So we need to get people that are honest, that will stand behind what they say on the campaign trail. And on that vein, one thing that I love about President Trump is he has stood behind his campaign promises better than any candidate I've ever seen in my lifetime. He stood behind what he promised that he would do. We need to get people that will stand behind what they promised on the campaign trail.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Mr. Montanez.
So we talked about term limits, that's important. I'd like to see the federal government become a citizen legislature just like the great state of Texas. I'd like to see that we are accountable for everything we say and everything that we do. You know, I met with Speaker Johnson recently in Washington, D.C. And the question that they asked me immediately was, when you get here to Washington, D.C., what's the first thing that you're going to propose? What's the first type of legislation? And what I said was, while this may seem small, it's very big for me. I'd like to see K through 12, all across this nation in public school, a return of Pledge of Allegiance every single day. Because when you don't pledge allegiance to this country, whether you're here or come from somewhere else, you either create a nation within a nation, or you bring your nation with you. Not on my watch. I'm the only person here that has been, I've lived under communism, I've lived in countries where you're under the thumb of oppression, and I can tell you it has no place in America, and no place in the great state of Texas, and definitely not here in Rockwall County.
Well, I've never lived under communism, but under Joe Biden, I felt like I was living under communism. I don't know if I did, but so the question is, why is government so unpopular? And I think you remember the old adage, it's the economy, stupid. This economy is about to get some tailwinds behind it. I'm in business right now. I see middle market companies, small businesses all across the United States. There's great things happening. Last year was a transition year with tariffs. Things are coming back. Jobs are coming back. I believe this. If you're a small business owner, you're going to see some great things happen. We're real close to interest rates coming, and tax cuts are coming. I would say this to young people. We've done you a disservice, but follow the plan. Believe in capitalism. Don't fall sway to socialism. The plan that President Trump has in place is working. I believe we're going to win elections. I believe popularity is going to go up when sentiment comes up and optimism comes up, and that's going to happen when the economy starts going a little bit stronger, and we're on our way. It's going to be a great year.
The government is not the answer to everything, as we all know. And, when I went to high school here, Plano Senior High, the number one job that people in high school wanted to be is a fireman or astronaut or a police officer. Today, if you go to schools, you ask them what's the number one job that people want to be, that kids want to be, it's a YouTube star. So the problem is education, but the problem is, the solution starts with communities, in the churches and the schools, at home, with education. We gotta get people to really understand American values again. Not, being people's hero is a 3-year-old that opens boxes and makes $35 million. A 3-year-old is not someone to look up to. But I can tell you, President Trump is so successful because he's a businessman. I have a law degree, but I'm not a lawyer. I'd say sending a trial lawyer to Washington is not going to be the solution. People that understand business need to go there and help President Trump, and that's I think a big key to that too.
May I respond to that? May I respond to that? Thank you. So, I'm a trial lawyer. I sue the left. And I'm very proud of that. The kind of fight that you've seen from me in the law work that I do, suing the city and county of San Francisco for firing a bunch of cops and firefighters for not getting the COVID vaccines, suing the city of San Antonio for threatening to give taxpayer dollars to nonprofits so they can take young women from Bexar County to Albuquerque for the sole purpose of getting them abortions. Suing green energy companies out in West Texas who are abusing Chapter 313 of the tax code. For too long on the right, we've played defense. I go on offense. I want to go on offense with you as your next congressman. If you agree, I'd appreciate your vote for Jay Scarborough. Thanks.
Moving on, we have 2 more questions before we move to closing. Several of you have run for office before and lost your primary races. Mr. Binkley, you ran for president in 2024. Mr. Bondar, you ran for Congress in Oklahoma's 4th Congressional District. Mr. Yarborough, you ran for Texas Senate District 30. Why should voters view this campaign as a deliberate decision to represent Texas 32 rather than the next available race after a loss? And what specifically is different this time about your message, your preparation, or your understanding of the voters you're asking to trust you? Mr. Binkley, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I ran for president this last election, and many people wonder, hey, Ryan, did you not like President Trump? And it was never about that. I never ran against President Trump. I'm a business leader, I'm an economist. I really ran because I know this, the next generation's in trouble financially because of the cataclysmic spending Joe Biden did during his 4-year reign. $8 trillion, 40% increase in money supply, and I was kind of just saying this, an affordability crisis is coming. And the number one thing we face today from Americans that we're seeing is the crisis from 2020 to today in affordability. I believe this, I got in this race for this one simple reason. I am from here. I've lived in this district for 35 years. After I got out, I supported President Trump. I campaigned for him. I spoke for him at Turning Point, and I gave to him. I've spoken with him several times about this race. I've been to the White House 4 times talking about this race over the last, this last year. The reality is this is my home. Richardson's where my business is. My church is in Richardson in this district. I own property in this district. And so when I saw that it was not being represented by business leadership like President Trump can bring, I felt called. Let's take a CEO to the people's house like President Trump did to the White House.
Thank you, Mr. Beasley.
I ran in Oklahoma because I was asked to by grassroots people who asked for help. An individual that was there for 22 years, that was the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, had an F rating, and they said, nobody can run against them. We can't get on television, we need your help. I turned them down in 2022. I have a ranch in Oklahoma. They said, make it your primary. I said, no, I want to have my kids live in Heath, and I want them to live and grow up and play in Rockwall, and this is where I want to be. And then I kept looking around, and I said, well, my goodness, I want to make a difference. Look at Pat Fallon. He's got a great record. And these people said, we need your help. They said, sometimes we get the best football players from Texas, and we got to bring them up to Oklahoma. We may need a Texan to come up here and help us take on a Rhino. Those are their words, not mine. And it was really just a difference on voting record. And I felt like people were being held back, and we needed to stand firm, and we needed to do America First agendas. And so I tried to help grassroots people. It wasn't an opportunity, it was a mission. Same mission I will be when I go to DC for Rockwall and for this district.
I was thrilled when the Texas legislature finally went on offense and did to the Democrats what they've been doing to us for years and created 5 new Republican seats to send 5 new Republicans to Congress to back up the president and give his agenda a buffer in the House. And as soon as the maps came out, I texted Katrina Pearson, who I've worked with in the legislature to fight for a lot of good pro-life legislation. And I said, hey, I was precinct chair, 1043 on the Dallas side of that district. Let me know how I can help you out. She was going to be the America First candidate in the race. She decided about Thanksgiving not to do it. And when that happened, I looked around, and some of my opponents have a record on things like amnesty, DEI. I wanted to put an America First fighter in the seat, and I was going to do everything I could to do it. And so I started making phone calls, and there wasn't one in the race, not a viable one. So I got in on the last day to file. We've been running this race since January 5th. We launched less than 3 weeks ago. And we're putting lead on target every day, and we're going hard. Why? Because I want the next opportunity? No. Because the president needs reinforcements in Congress. Somebody we can trust to fight for his agenda, not weak-kneed Republicans who will take us back to Biden's open border chaos.
Thank you, Mr. Yarbrough. Go ahead, 30 seconds.
Thank you.
Mr. Binkley.
I'm not so sure, Jace, but I think you're referring to me when you're talking about a candidate that supposedly meant for amnesty. The reason I felt like that because I have people call me all the time that says, Jace just came out of a meeting. He says you're for illegal immigration. And so I want to make the record perfectly clear. I did run for president. I did come up and say we need to send people back. In fact, I called for a plan to send 15 to 20 million people back. Right now, we've sent about 600,000. I've always said no to amnesty, and I just really want to make sure everybody understands this, because when somebody does political things for political reasons to try and change the narrative to make himself look good, this is what politicians do.
Thank you, Mr. Binkley.
And I'm tired of politicians trying to paint stories for what real Americans want.
Thank you, Mr. Binkley. Okay, next question is our last question we're asking the remaining 4, because we know that was a very pointed question to Mr. Binkley, Mr. Bondar, and Mr. Yarbrough. So if you want to use some of your time to address that, you may. But we also have to respect the time and then give everybody a closing remark. So we're going to talk a little bit about the idea of perhaps not agreeing with the president 100% of the time. And I'll reference Mr. Heslop. On your campaign website, you describe your support for President Trump as about 50-50. Others on the stage have expressed a stronger and more consistent alignment. So for the other 4 of you, where do you disagree with President Trump, and how would you navigate those disagreements while still working toward a unified Republican Party? Where does loyalty to a particular political leader end, and where does standing on principle begin for a member of Congress? So, Mr. Heslop, we'll start with you.
Your loyalty needs to be to the country and the principles you believe in. Parties elect leaders from time to time, but we're not like North Korea, where we worship the leader. Often the leader's wrong, often the leader's right. I praise President Trump for some of the things he's done, but some of the things he's done are not good. He made America look stupid last week, going to Davos, or however you pronounce it, in Switzerland. Well, you don't know how the rest of the world thinks, and it affects us.
We live here in America.
Well, I know, but we deal with the world.
Hold on, Mr. Heslop has the microphone, please.
We're not taking over Canada. We're not taking over Greenland. But one of the other things I'd like to mention is personal behavior. And some of you will be offended. It's not right to call ladies piggy or ugly. It's just not decent.
Thank you, Mr. Heslop.
All right.
Thank you. Mr. Day, the question, where do you disagree with President Trump, if anywhere, and how would you navigate those disagreements while still working to a unified Republican Party?
I agree with his policies about 99.9%. One thing that he suggested that I thought was a terrible idea was allowing 800,000 more Chinese students to our universities. They have robbed us blind in research facilities all over this country. So no. I don't want more Chinese students flooding into our universities. I want to cut that off. I want a lot less. So that's one.
Mr. Vaziri?
I mentioned earlier that one of the areas that I think I disagree with President Trump is, he's not tough enough on China. I think, and I understand, why he's playing the game the way he is, because, he's masterfully playing it politically. And, but China, basically they flood our markets with their products, and our biggest companies, look at our, the Fab 7 that we have. Most of those companies cannot sell their products, their technology in China. They're blocked out. Facebook's completely blocked out. Google's completely blocked out. So that's the one area that I disagree with President Trump. I do agree with President Trump, more than 90% of the time. And, in 2015, I was in Trump Towers and I bought my Make America Great Again hat, and I got a lot of flack from that from my friends in law school. And on January 6, 2021, I was there in Washington supporting President Trump. I think a lot of people here are wearing their Trump hats today, but I've been a supporter of President Trump from day one.
Okay, Mr. Montanez.
Yes, thank you. So I do agree with President Donald Trump. But I swore an oath to the Constitution, to defend the Constitution from enemies both foreign and domestic. And as your congressman, my oath is to serve you, not the party, not the president. So I do take issue, though, with, so I'm going to use the rest of my time to talk about a little bit of comments that Jason that he shared earlier. So he mentioned that he had the opportunity to jump in the race because there was not a viable candidate. Well, but I will share with you that when this district, before it was redrawn, it was a very deep blue district. I was the first and the only candidate to be in this race almost 2 years now. All the rest of the gentlemen up here, they did not join this race until September or December. And I'll let that sit with you.
Okay, thank you. So let's, Mr. Binkley, go ahead.
I did join in August, so before it was done.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, candidates, for answering so many of our questions this evening. We're now going to move into our closing statements. We are going to reset the time to 90 seconds per closing statement. Now is your opportunity to best connect with the voters. They've heard your ideas, they've heard where you stand on certain issues, but this is your final appeal to them of the evening. So I would encourage you to dig deep in these 90 seconds that you have remaining. The order was chosen at random, and Mr. Yarbrough, we'll start with you.
I think the most important issue in this race is who's going to go on offense. That is the thing the president has taught us. If you're going to defeat the left, you have to take the fight to them. It's not enough to simply say no and play defense. I'm a Christian, I'm a believer. My granddad was a Southern Baptist pastor. One passage I go back to on this, Jeremiah chapter 29, you may remember the children of Israel taken captive into Babylon, the city of Satan. And Jeremiah comes to them after they've been taken captive, and they're waiting to hear from the Lord. Okay, how long are we going to have to be here? How long is this going to take before you come and rescue us? And this is what Jeremiah says to him. He says, build houses, plant gardens, take their children in marriage, give your children to theirs in marriage, because in the peace of that city will you have peace. I am done with politicians who stand up and say, I'm America first and I'm MAGA, when their record clearly states otherwise, particularly on the issue of immigration, which I have said many times is the issue of our day. We cannot afford to send from a Trump plus 17 district someone who has a clear record of undermining the president's agenda on this issue. And I am on the record many times, on the Will Cain show and others, stating unequivocally that I will support to the hilt the brave ICE agents who are implementing the president's policies, the president himself, who stands unapologetically and takes the slings and arrows from the left to say, this is our country, you can call me whatever you want, but if you don't share our values, you don't belong here. And we're going to send you back home because our children's future depends on it. If you agree with that, Jay Charbonneau, Texas 32, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Yarborough. Mr. Heslop, your closing remarks, please.
Thank you. Well, I'm a little different from the other candidates. As you said, I'm about 50-50 on President Trump. I think his actions on the Ukraine have been shameful. You know, you've got a brutal, communist, murdering dictator trying to take over a country that wants to be free. And at every step, he's basically favored his buddy Putin. I'm not wearing a suit in protest about the shameful treatment of President Zelensky in the White House when Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend tried to make fun of the president of Ukraine. So I'm virulently anti-communist. I believe in private enterprise, but I don't believe in crony capitalism, and we've got too much of that. We need to pay more attention to the little man and the little lady, who are the majority of our population. So my focus is on the middle class. No one in the middle class should be paying a higher rate of tax than someone making $100 million. We have to strengthen the middle class, increase home ownership, to continue to have a country that leads the world.
Thank you, Mr. Heslop. Mr. Vaziri.
Let me first start out by saying that we live in the greatest country in the world. Amen. And we live in the best state in the union. Yeah. And by the way, one of the best counties in Texas. You know, if you want to raise a family, there's no better county than Rockwall County. I have several friends that raise their families here. As a political refugee from Iran who's seen the evils of Islamic terrorism and Islamic radicalism, I'm here from the basically future telling you, I've seen this movie. What happened in New York is shameful. I'm a new Christian. I just became a Christian a year ago. I've been practicing, but openly a Christian. And whether I win this race or not, one of my goals is to try to convert 90 million people in Iran to Christianity. Today there's between 3 to 10 million people in Iran that are Christians that practice undercover because if they're found to be Christians, they'll be executed. Monday I'm doing a ministry live into about 1 million people in Iran. Hopefully some of them will be able to join because the internet's been shut down. But I think it's the most important threat for us in this country, and Colonel Allen West said it the other day, is the joint between the red and the green. And that's, you know, Islamism and Marxism. And we cannot let these people come to our communities and win races and be in our government. Look what happened to New York, Mamdani. I mean, one of the reasons that Europe is completely destroyed and gone is because Europe has a big population of atheists. And when there's a vacuum, the Islamists came in and filled that. And with Christianity, with our Judeo-Christian values, and with everybody joining, we all have to stop and not let Islamic terrorism, Islamic fundamentalism come here in Texas, and we got to kick it out of the entire United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vaziri. Mr. Bondar.
I wasn't lucky enough to be born in Texas, but neither was Ted Cruz, Paxton, and Patrick. And if they're good enough to be leaders, and you're leaders, then hopefully I am too. I will stand up here and say one thing. I am the only candidate that resides in Rockwall County. And this district is made for Rockwall County. My wife and I, we drive on the streets, we know the traffic. You will see me at church, you will have access to me. Think about it. Do you want to be able to see your representative from time to time when he's in Washington? Most of the time, you'll see me at church. You'll see me in the district. That's a very important thing. The other thing is, this ring right here. I won this ring years ago. It's a championship ring defending home. That's what we have to do. We need somebody that's going to be able to connect East Texas to East Dallas. And as far as I'm concerned, we do have a threat to the district. We need to have a rock wall around Rockwall to stop the wokeism of the blue from coming in here. We need to protect our small town and not have our values be changed. And as your candidate, I understand those principles, and I live it with you all, and it's about you. It's about us. I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth. I believe without the Second Amendment, we would not have the First. I believe climate change is a scam, the Green New Deal, a sham, and the Trump impeachment is a kangaroo court. And ladies and gentlemen, I will take the global boot off the foot of free speech as your new representative and represent this district and represent you, the people. From Rockwall, God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Baumgartner. Mr. Day.
Thank you. Y'all, thank you for coming out on this cold night. It's colder than a gold digger's heart, so hats off to you for coming out tonight. Daryl Day, and I'll tell you, we've got some really sharp people up here. So how do you decide from a group of very, very sharp people? We agree on most things. I think I'm a little bit more of a budget hawk than most. But I think you have to look at who is a candidate who can win the seat in November, who will be reliably a fighter for conservative values when they get to Washington. And I mentioned it earlier, time and time again, we've seen people that talked conservative values on the campaign trail and then got to Austin or got to DC and forgot about that. They put their hand on a Bible, pledged to stand up for the Constitution, and forgot to stand up for the Constitution after pledging on a Bible to do it. I was a MAGA guy when this district was very, very blue. I was the nominee in CD32 2 years ago. Got over 85,000 votes in a very, very blue district. I'm a MAGA guy now, and I'll be a MAGA guy in Washington fighting for you. If you have any additional questions, come find us in the back of the room or go to dayfortexas.com. Love to have your support, and let's go kick some Democrat ass in November.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Mr. Montanez.
I'd like to start off by saying that there's a lot of great patriots up here. We don't need another Republican in Washington, D.C. We need a conservative, a Christian conservative Republican. Not all of us, I think, fit that bill. We also need people, we need to make sure that folks live in the district. Not all of us live in the district. We also need someone, as I mentioned before, that knows what service before self is, and someone that not says that they're going to fight, but has actually fought. Not all of us have done that. Some of us have, some of us haven't. I have. I'm one of 2 veterans here. I'm the only combat veteran. I fought in 2 theaters around the world. I swore an allegiance to this country at 17 years old to support, protect your rights, whether you realize that or not, all over the world. And I'm ready to do that again. So I ask, if you want to learn more about me, not only just come over there and shake my hand and I'll tell you everything you need to know, but you can also visit montyforcongress.com. That's Monty, F-O-R Congress.com, where you can learn a lot more about me. You can reach out. You can call us. We're easily accessible. So again, thanks to everyone up here tonight. Thanks for coming out. We all love Texas. We all love America. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Montanez. And Mr. Binkley.
Our country today is in a fight for the soul of the nation. We are finding out and struggling whether we're going to be a sovereign nation, have strong borders, whether we're going to have jobs here in America, whether we're going to be a company that submits to globalism. This fight is ever present, especially among young people. When Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and I had a chance to go to his memorial, I was invited there. When I walked out, I recognized that he was killed for saying things that you and I hold dearly. And this is where we're at. And I believe it's just not an ordinary day. We know this, the strife that we're in our nation, the debt we're in, the crisis we're in, the fight globally. President Trump has us on this track, and we're fighting for representation in Congress that truly can carry, I believe, the spiritual and the economic revival that's needed today to carry our country to another place. Since it's not an ordinary day, I don't think you need ordinary candidates. I'm a father of 5. I've been married for 27 years to my wife Ellie. I'm the CEO of a business. I'm responsible for 400 plus families being fed every week. I'm a pastor in the district as well, right here in Richardson of the 800-900 member church. There are spiritual needs, there's financial needs we're all facing. I will fight as a CEO to balance the budget, to unleash the American economy with President Trump, to get our country going again. It can happen with getting deregulation out. As a father, I will fight for your kids. It's time that we have national legislation for pro-life. It's time that we protect kids from ungodly surgeries. And as a pastor, I would say this. It's time for the revival that you have here in Rockwall. Churches are filled. Why do you have great leadership here? It's simply this, because you've elected officials that way. We need an economic revival and a spiritual revival, and the time is now. I would love to be your candidate for that, to represent you right here in this district. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Beasley. Ladies and gentlemen, how about another round of applause for all of our candidates who came out this evening. It's great to have the opportunity to hear from so many of them with different ideas so that we can be educated voters. I encourage everyone to get to know a little bit more about them. Before we close, you'll see campaign literature on the floor, on the chair. Please take that with you so you can continue to learn more about those candidates. And truth is, the less there are on those chairs on the floor, the less the staff have to clean up with it. So we'd appreciate that. We have one more forum coming next Friday, same time. Oh, are you doing that, Brett? Okay, we have same time right here. Our county races we'll have, so please make sure to show up to those as well. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Brett Bushnell for closing remarks.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Our county chair, Sharon Hinton, has a couple remarks before we get out of here.
If I could get your attention just for another couple of minutes. It won't be long, I promise. I know everybody's ready to get home and off the wet streets. You know, this has just been such an inspiring night. We are blessed to have such a caliber of candidates. Please listen. There's a scripture that comes to mind tonight. The heart of the wise inclines to the right, but the heart of the fool to the left. I think we've got a lot of right-minded people here tonight. We're grateful that you're all come out. I want to say thank you to the candidates, to the committee who's done a superlative job. To our unsung heroes, timekeepers, Patty Maggio and Francis White, who quietly sit up here and flash the lights at our candidates. And then also a big shout out to Blue Ribbon News for awesome work doing the Facebook live stream for us. I encourage you to go around and visit the tables. We've got these candidates have tables as well as some other candidates from the other races. Cameron Cowan, Frank Mew, John Stacy, and Jason Eddington. Please take a minute to go by and talk to them. Have a great night. Drive safe. We'll see you next Friday.